Good evening, YouTube. Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully everything's going well. Hopefully you guys are warm. Have a little head cold, so I might sound a little stuffy. If it bothers you, I do apologize. But given the abrupt nature of the weather that's been going on here, it's not really surprising that this kind of thing can happen. Hopefully it does not get worse for me during the overnight hours when temperatures are expected to drop in my area. Speaking of things dropping, dropped last night's video and you guys killed it. Wow. That's my most viewed video and it hasn't even been a full day. So I want to say before I get into the video, thank you so much. Like I really appreciate you guys. Like I really do. I enjoy doing this and I'm going to do this for just about every storm and maybe do even more as time goes on and the channel builds up. But that being said, let's go ahead and actually take a look at what's going on right now. We're going to take a look at the radar currently. We're going to go to radar Omega. And we're actually going to start a little bit north of the border where we're seeing heavy snow. But one thing I want you to note here are these temperatures. Keep in mind, like I said, this is north of the border right now. This is Sault Ste. Marie. And areas around these regions are just either at freezing, a little bit below. But everything's above zero right now. Even for little areas outside of the map like this one right here, this is just north of the border over towards actually doesn't state the city, but we'll click on one of these and figure out where it is. Okay, these are just weather stations. I'm not able to figure out where the city names are. That's kind of crazy. This is the first time I've also tried using radar Omega in this manner, which is kind of cool though. But we can see that it's all snow over here in these regions, but also above zero. But once we start to get a little bit further to the south, like say Chicago for example, and this is where the front has started to pass, we're sitting at 1 degree below zero right now. This is where our front's passed. Most of the snow has stopped falling over this region too. But even over towards far southern Michigan here, we're sitting at 16 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind gusts sitting at about 28 miles an hour, so that wind chill is most likely going to be below zero over there. But let this sink in here. It's colder in Chicago than it is in some part of Canada right now. What? And then as we move this forward, as we go further out to the east, a lot of areas are either just now starting to experience the cold front or just beginning to change over from rain to snow. For example, Detroit, and this just changed over to high res. If we look at the winter weather radar here, we're still sitting in some rain right now, but that front is right on our doorstep here. You can see this rain snow line here, and you get some decent snowfall totals. These will eventually start to pick up as the storm starts to move further and further to the north. You will start to see that counterclockwise swirl of the low pressure itself, and this will start to wrap around and cause more snow to fall around these regions. But another crazy thing to note is it's 38 right now near Detroit, but if we head down towards Indianapolis, we're sitting at a temperature of 2 degrees right now. It's just crazy how things work right now. But your time is coming, Detroit, so hopefully you guys have your fireplace cranked up, heat on, and you're ready to go. Also, one thing to note, and while these areas up here are used to are a little bit more used to their winter weather, and it probably have a more suited power grid to handle this, some of these areas a little bit further to the south, I'm a little more concerned with on that. For those of us that aren't as used to it, just try to be mindful of your power usage as time goes on, because this will ultimately end up putting a strain on the on the power grid. We have to stay warm, so just make sure you're turning off unnecessary lights. Make sure you aren't running anything ridiculous if you can help it. If you have to, then so be it, but just do the best you can to try to do your part and help yourself and really others along ultimately. Of course, with it being brutally cold as it is, open the doors in your house when you turn on the heat, of course, and then also let your faucets drip if there's any way you can turn off unessential areas where there's water running, I would definitely recommend that as well. And then let's move this along and go into Louisville. We've changed over at this point. So anywhere that's west of Louisville, this is where the cold temperatures have started to take over. Louisville's actually getting some pretty significant snow right now. Expecting at least 2 to 4 inches over in this region. But anywhere further off to the east of that, right now we're still in the warm sector, mainly dealing with rain and temperatures in the mid to upper 40s. Nashville at this point is starting to change over to snow most likely. But it's interesting once we get towards areas like Columbus Air Force Base and Mississippi. Cold front hasn't quite passed through yet, but we are getting close. That temperature is starting to drop. We're sitting at 36 degrees with a dew point of 30. Over towards Birmingham, we're sitting at 52. We're actually pretty warm over here. As we go further to the east, the temperature, oddly enough, it starts to drop a little further. Like from my area towards Atlanta, this is the weather site in Peachtree, we're sitting at 45 degrees. And actually just south of Macon over here towards Warner Robins, we're sitting at 47 degrees. Birmingham typically would be colder than us. So it just kind of shows the dynamic nature of this system. Just some of the little minor intricacies with this. But these are the temperatures for right now. We'll go ahead and even take a look at some of the impacts here. Look at the severity index because there have been a few changes with this as well. We'll go ahead and put up day 1. And we can see clearly that some changes have been made. We're talking about areas over towards the southeast now starting to get into play. Atlanta, you're just outside of this now. Birmingham, you're firmly within this now, unlike before. Huntsville, you're in there as well. Tupelo, you're in the you have a chance for some wintry conditions. Jackson, interestingly enough, has a minor to moderate area over here as well. This will mainly be due to the fact that some of the rain that you ended up getting might flash freeze and cause black ice on the roadways. I'm thinking this may very well be the same for some of these guys up here. The further north you go, this is more towards a potential for snow, ice, and really difficult roadways to pass to have passed, so to speak. So let's go ahead and actually look at some models here. We'll look at what the snow looks like, the temperature drop, and even the winds. So this is a look at what the radar is most likely looking like right now. This is the OOZ NAM 3 kilometer run here. And we'll move this forward actually. And we'll put this in a loop. And we'll see this snow line move further to the north and east here. But one interesting thing to note is, if you look closely, you can actually see that some areas over here towards the southeast are now starting to be in play more. Maybe even just north of Atlanta, you guys are going to see some more significant weather. Maybe some freezing rain and sleet can't be ruled out for you guys. Significant snow seems likely over towards the Tennessee Valley, Ohio Valley, and over towards the mountains here towards West Virginia and parts of Virginia itself. Then we'll watch as we move further and further along on the model that as the storm starts to swirl its way up to the north and east, areas like Buffalo, Detroit will be seeing round after round of snow, especially with the onshore wind flow that will be coming with the system. Will trigger a lake effect event too, so that it's kind of adding insult to injury. I hate to say it, but I'm the kind of guy that's wanting to tell the truth here as far as the weather's concerned especially. So that being said, hopefully you guys over here are prepared, because you guys are definitely going to be in the bullseye, so to speak. As time goes on, the storm system will probably be working its way out over the course of Christmas Eve and into Christmas Day. The cold temperatures will be lingering though, so we'll have to make sure we have good supply and keeping ourselves warm over the next few days. I think the day after Christmas, or a couple of days after Christmas, is when things may start to shift more towards a warm-up. Let's go ahead and look at the temperature here, and we'll reset this back to current time. So you can clearly see where this front is. It's just out ahead of this really sharp contrast here. Over here in the darker blues and the yellows, we're dealing with 50s and 60s in a lot of spots. Some 30s and 20s out here, but you can see clearly once we get towards this region here, we're getting into the single digits and below zero temperatures. And then of course over here is where the coldest air of all is right now. And we'll roll this forward, going into a loop. The front is already passing Nashville. Now I'm thinking over towards eastern Tennessee and Kentucky. We'll have to watch you guys more so towards maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. Atlanta, Montgomery, I'm thinking 1 to 2 a.m. Eastern or Central Time, whichever one you want to go with here. And then by about 4 o'clock, I'm thinking Charlotte, Columbia, you guys are going to be catching this cold air. Once we go over towards the interior mid-Atlantic here, we're thinking about 5-6 a.m. for you guys. Washington, Richmond, I'm thinking about 7. And then we'll watch the cold air invade the Northeast by mid-morning, I would say. From that point on, where the entire eastern half of the country is going to be frigid as I don't know what. And it's really not going to be until the latter half where the temperatures in Maine will start to catch up with some of these areas over here in the southeast, which are seeing temperatures below zero, which is hard for me to believe, honestly. You don't see storm systems like this often, so it's just kind of wild to think that we're seeing this. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the wind pattern. We're going to shift over to the HRRR here. So here's a look at our wind field that we're going to be dealing with. This is looking at wind gust. If you don't know, a lot of areas probably around here are already under wind advisories or wind warnings. These are advisories and warnings for whenever the winds are expected to gust above at least 35 miles an hour. That's what it takes for an advisory, and if I remember correctly, it's 50 miles an hour more for a wind warning or high wind warning. So anywhere in these areas that are in the brighter colors in particular, that's where some of the strongest wind is going to be concentrated. And this is where the Midwest is still dealing with some issues here, because even though the snow has already stopped falling over these areas for a little while now, we're having somewhat of a ground blizzard taking effect here simply because of the strong winds blowing that snow into the air and reducing visibility to near zero still for a lot of people. And this is going to end up becoming a thing as we get towards the Great Lakes regions. A lot of these places could be seeing a blizzard along with 2 feet of snow. So this is going to be a very tough time if you're going to be thinking about traveling. Just do your best to stay home and stay warm. Spend some time with some family. Hopefully your family is not a nightmare to deal with. That being said, let's go ahead and move this forward here. I'm going to actually jump back a little bit to 8 o'clock and let this roll from here on out. So here's that wind field moving through over towards the mountains where the highest concentration of wind is until we get towards Christmas, the morning of Christmas Eve. Then we start to see the Great Lakes really starting to come into play here. This is over towards Buffalo in particular, and just to the south of Ottawa towards the border here. Looking at Buffalo, Rochester, Plattsburgh, you guys could be seeing 40, 50 plus mile per hour winds along with snowfall, so blizzard conditions could be possible here. Wouldn't be surprised to see potentially a blizzard warning in effect soon, because this duration seems like it would be long enough in a lot of areas, especially towards Buffalo, for it to qualify as a blizzard. You have to have falling snow with high winds for at least 3 or 4 hours, if I remember correctly. So a lot of these areas right here would be in criteria for blizzard conditions just based off of this model alone. The rest of us, we're still looking at 35 to 40 mile per hour gust. Still very uncomfortable conditions. And even on the backside of the system, you can almost actually see where this low is outlined just based on the swirl. You can see the counterclockwise flow of this wind here. So it's going to be uncomfortable for a lot of people over the next 24 to 36 hours. We're almost, but just as quickly as it'll come in, it'll move out. Just try to hang in there and bear with it the best you can. That being said, let's actually go over to the forecast models and look at what kind of snow we could be expecting over the next 24 hours and overall. So this is a model comparison looking at our 24-hour snowfall totals. This is what the Euro is looking like. A lot of widespread areas where we could be seeing about, excuse me, I got the sniffles, about 2 to 4 inches, and then areas where we could see about 6 to 8 inches. I think the Euro is a little bit aggressive around the Ohio Valley. Over towards the Great Lakes, it's actually underdoing it, I think, because that low is going to be strongest as it's going over Canada and just bringing a lot of wraparound snow on the backside of this. So these totals, I expect them to actually be higher than this. It'd be nice if they were a little bit lower like what the Euro is showing, but we'll have to see how things progress there. We'll move this to the Canadian model. Also kind of underdoing things. GFS is a little bit aggressive too, kind of leaning more into the southeast also as well. The HRRR is a little bit more realistic, but not by that much. There's a big swath of snow that's coming through central Ohio now too, and over towards northern Kentucky towards Louisville, which I find pretty interesting there. We'll run the NAM over here, and this is where we start to get into more a little bit of lighter totals, a little bit lighter on the totals, so to speak. And then also looking at this little swath here, it is a little bit smaller, but there's still an area where we could see about 6 to 8 inches towards central Ohio. This is even going towards some of my family over here in Springfield, so shout out to you guys if you're seeing this video. And then we'll move this to the NAM 3 kilometer. That swath is a little bit smaller, but the heaviest snow is definitely going to be off the Great Lakes, where heavy snow and maybe even blizzard conditions are possible to maybe even likely. And then of course, let's lastly look at the National Weather Service for blend of models here on our snowfall here. So here we are looking at the Great Lakes being the hot spot here. Oddly enough, though, like I said, the blend of models here has Central Ohio getting a little bit less as far as the overall snowfall totals, but I do think that there could actually be potential for a pocket of heavier snow to form here. We'll have to see what happens with this, but the general synopsis is Great Lakes, UP of Michigan, north of and anywhere just on the border is going to be the big winner in regards to snow here. And this is looking all the way out into Monday morning, when our system will be pretty much done here, and we'll have to be watching the next system right here popping in, which will be an Alberta Clipper from the looks of it. But widespread areas of 2 to 4 inches, some areas where we could see 6 inches or more. Towards the Great Lakes, that's when we start seeing 1 to 2 feet being pretty likely at this point, and isolated pockets of even higher amounts. Compare that to the NAM. Oh, I did not mean to do that. Okay, so this is the NAM right here, and it's not too dissimilar actually. And as we go forward here, this is the GFS, a little bit of the same here, maybe a little bit lighter totals than what the blend of models is showing, and then the same can be said for the Canadian. Actually, it's not that far off towards the Great Lakes, but over towards these regions, I think it's a little bit of variation. But for the most part, we have an idea of where our high snowfall totals are going to be, and we have a general idea of who's going to be seeing a sufficient amount of snow. Towards the southeast, you could probably see flurries, but like I said, if you're a little bit south of Little Rock, I wouldn't expect to see a lot. Then again, though, there was a report that Dallas, Texas today, who wasn't expecting snow, they got about half an inch of accumulation. So that is interesting. I'll have to keep an eye on this and see how things progress from there. But this is what we have going on here right now, and we'll just see how things play out again. But this is the end of this video. Sorry if I sound tired and like I'm repeating myself, because I am, and I'm trying not to get sick right now. But if you liked anything I did in this video, definitely drop me a like. Also, let me know in the comments where you are, what kind of conditions you're dealing with, especially if you're going to be expecting snow. I do have social media. It's in the description of my channel here. So if you go on the main page and look, you'll find me. Feel free to send any photos of winter weather, and just yeah. Also, I noticed about 80% of you aren't subscribed that are watching my videos. I mean, it's free to watch, always will be. I enjoy doing this, so, and I don't really plan on going anywhere as well. So, that being said, enough rambling from me. This has been Ty, Metalhead Weatherman. You guys have a good night. You stay warm again. Happy holidays, and I'll see you soon.